"It was all a very wicked thing," said another doe. "Shameful, really. If nobody fought in wars, there wouldn't be any, would there? But you just can't get old rabbits to see that." "My father was in it," said another buck. "He gets on about it sometimes. I always leave as soon as I can. They did this and they did that and all that. It makes you want to curl up, to be honest. Ah, the poor old geezer. You'd think he'd want to forget about it. I reckon he made half of it up anyhow. And where did it all get him? Tell me that." If you don't mind waiting a little bit, sir," said a third buck to Elorira, "I'll go and see if I can find Captain Lustre for you. I don't actually know him myself, but then again, it's a rather big warren." "Oh, that's very good of you," said Elorira, "but I think I've got my bearings now, and I can manage it myself." Elorira went along the hedgerow to the woods, and sat alone under a nut bush, gazing out across the fields. And as the light began to fail, he suddenly realized that Lord Frith was close beside him, among the leaves. "Are you angry, Elorira?" asked Lord Frith. "No, my lord," replied Elorira, "I am not angry, but I have learned that with creatures one loves, suffering is not the only thing for which one may pity them. A rabbit who does not know when a gift has made him safe is poorer than a slug, even though he may think otherwise himself. Wisdom is found on the desolate hillside, Elorira, where none comes to feed, and the stony bank where the rabbit scratches a hole in vain. But speaking of gifts, I have brought a few for you. A pair of ears, a tail, and some whiskers. You may find the ears slightly strange at first. I put a little starlight in them, but it is really quite faint, not enough, I am sure, to give away a clever thief like you. Ah, there's Rabscuttle coming back. Good, I have something for him too, shall we? Hazel! Hazelraw! It was Pipkin's voice, from behind a clump of burdock, on the edge of the circle of listeners. There's a fox coming through the woods! Chapter 32. Across the Iron Road. Some people have the idea that rabbits spend a good deal of their time running away from foxes. It is true that every rabbit fears foxes and will bolt if it smells one, but many rabbits go all their lives without actually seeing a fox, and probably only an actual few fall victim to an enemy who smells so strongly and cannot run as fast as they can. A fox trying to catch a rabbit usually creeps upwind under cover, perhaps through a patch of woodland to the edge, and then, if he succeeds in getting close to where the rabbits are at sillflay along the bank or in the field, he lies still and watches his chance for a quick snatch. It is said that sometimes he fascinates them, as a weasel will do, by rolling around and playing in the open, but coming closer little by little until he can make his grab. However it may be, it is certain that no fox hunts rabbits by going openly up the middle of a field at sunset. Neither Hazel nor any of the rabbits who had ever been listening to Dandelion's story had seen a fox. Nevertheless, they knew that a fox out in the open, plain to be seen, is not dangerous, as long as it is spotted in time. Hazel realized that he had been careless to allow everyone to gather around Dandelion, and to have failed to post even one sentry guard. What wind there was from the northeast, and the fox, coming up from the west, might have broken in upon them with no warning. But from this danger they had been saved simply by Fiver and Pipkin going into the open. And even in his flash of alarm as Pipkin spoke, it crossed Hazel's mind that Fiver, no doubt reluctant to advise him in front of the others, had probably seized the opportunity provided by Pipkin's fear to post himself as a sentry. Hazel thought quickly. If the fox were not too close, all they had to do was run. There were woodlands nearby, and they could simply vanish, keeping more or less together, and simply continue on their way. And he pushed through the burdock leaves. "How close is it?" he asked, "and where's Fiver?" "I'm over here," replied Fiver, from a few yards away. He was squatting under the long thorns of a dog rose, and did not turn his head as Hazel came up beside him. "And there's the fox," he added, and Hazel followed his gaze. The rough, weed-covered ground of the field sloped away below them, A long dip bounded on the north by Caesar's Belt, and the last of the setting sun shone straight up it through a break in the trees. The fox was below them and still some ways off, although it was almost directly downwind, and therefore must be able to smell them. It did not look as though it were particularly interested in rabbits. It was trotting steadily like a dog, trailing its white-tipped brush. In color, it was sandy brown, with dark legs and ears, and even now, though obviously not hunting, it had a crafty, predatory look that made the watchers among the dog roses shiver. And as it passed behind a patch of thistles and disappeared from view, Hazel and Fiver returned to the others. "Come on," said Hazel. "If you've never seen a fox, don't bother to go and look now. Just follow me." He was about to lead the way to the south side of the field when suddenly a rabbit shouldered him roughly out of the way, pushed past Fiver, and went into the open. Hazel stopped and looked around in amazement. "Who was that?" he asked. "Bigwig," answered Fiver, staring. Together they quickly went back to the thorn bush and once more looked out. Bigwig, in full view, was now loping warily downhill, straight towards the fox. They watched him, horrified. He drew near, but still the fox paid him no attention. "Hazel," said Silver from behind, "shall I—" "No one is to move," said Hazel quickly. "Keep still, all of you." At about 30 yards distance, the fox noticed the approaching rabbit. It paused for a moment, but then continued to trot forward, and it was almost upon him before Bigwig turned and began to limp up the north side of the field towards the trees of Caesar's Belt. The fox hesitated again and then followed him. "What's he up to?" muttered Blackberry. "He's trying to draw it away from us, I suppose," replied Fiver. "But he didn't have to. We could have got away without all of this." "Oh, what a fool!" said Hazel. "I don't know when I've been so angry." The fox had now quickened its pace, and was now some distance away from them. It appeared to be overtaking Bigwig. The sun had set, and in the falling light they could just make him out as he entered the undergrowth. He disappeared, and the fox followed. For several moments all was quiet. Then horribly clear, across the darkening empty comb, there came the agonizing squeal of a stricken rabbit. "Oh, Frith and Inlay!" cried Blackberry, stamping his foot. Pipkin turned to bolt, but Hazel did not move. "Shall we go, Hazel?" asked Silver. "We can't help him now." But as he spoke, Bigwig suddenly broke out of the trees, running very fast, and almost before they could grasp that he was still alive, he had recrossed the entire upper slope of the field in a single dash, and bolted in among them. "Come on," said Bigwig. "Let's get out of here." "But what's going on? Are you wounded?" asked Bluebell in confusion. "No," said Bigwig. I've never been better. Let's go." "You can wait until I'm ready," said Hazel, in a cold, angry tone. "You've done your best to kill yourself, and acted the complete fool. Now hold your tongue and sit down." He turned, and although it was rapidly becoming too dark to see any distance, he made as though he were still looking out over the field. And behind him, the rabbits fidgeted nervously. Several had begun to feel the dreamlike sense of unreality. The long day above ground, the close, overgrown forest, the frightening story in which they had been absorbed, the sudden appearance of the fox, the shock of Bigwig's inexplicable adventure, all of these, following one upon the other, had flooded their spirits and left them dull and bemused. "Get them out of here, Hazel," whispered Fiver, "before they all go tharn." And Hazel turned at once. "Well, no fox," he said cheerfully. "It's gone, and we'll go too. But for goodness sakes, keep close together, because if anyone gets lost in the dark, we may not find him again. And remember, if we come upon any strange rabbits, you're to attack them at once and ask questions afterwards." They skirted the side of the woods that lay along the southern edge of the combe, and then in ones and twos they slipped across the empty road beyond. And little by little their spirits cleared. They found themselves in open farmland. Indeed, they could both smell and hear the farm, not far away on the evening side. And the going was easy, smooth, wide pasture fields that sloped gently downhill, and were divided, not by hedges, but by broad, low banks, each as wide as a lane and overgrown with elder, dogwood, and spindle trees. This was true rabbit country, reassuring after the belt and the tangled goosegrass fields, and when they had covered a good distance over the turf, halting continually to listen, sniff, and then running one then another from each piece of cover to the next, Hazel felt safe in giving them a rest. And as soon as he had sent out Speedwell and Hawkbit as sentries, he led Bigwig to one side. "I'm angry with you," he said. "You're the one rabbit we're not going to be able to do without, and you have to go and run a risk like that. It wasn't necessary. It wasn't even smart. What were you up to?" I don't know. I guess I just lost my head, Hazel," replied Bigwig. "I've been nervous all day, thinking about this business at Ephrafa. It really got me on edge. And when I feel like that, I have to do something, I have to fight or take a risk. I thought if I could make that fox look a fool, I wouldn't feel so worried about that other thing. What's more, it worked. I feel better now." "Oh, playing El-ahrairah," said Hazel. "You idiot. You might have thrown your life away for nothing, and we all thought you had. Don't do it again. You know everything's going to depend on you. But tell me, what happened in those trees? And why did you squeal like that if you were all right?" "I didn't," said Bigwig. "It was so strange what happened. And terrible, too, I'm afraid. I was going to lose that hamba in the trees, you see, and then just come back. Well, I went into the undergrowth, and I just stopped limping and was starting to run really fast, when suddenly I found myself face to face with a bunch of rabbits, strangers. They were coming towards me, as if they were going out into the open. Of course, I didn't really have time to get a good look at them, but they did seem to be big fellows. 'Look out, run!' I said, as I dashed up to them, but all they did was try to stop me. One of them said, 'You stay here,' or something like that, and then he got right in my way, so I knocked him down. I had to, and I raced off, and the next thing I heard was that dreadful squealing. Of course, I went even faster then, and I got clear of the trees and came back to you. So the hamba got this other rabbit. It must have. After all, I let it right on to them, even though I didn't mean to. But I never actually saw what happened." "Well, what became of the others?" "I have no idea. They must have run, I suppose." "I see," said Hazel thoughtfully. "Well, perhaps it's all for the best. But look here, Bigwig, no more fancy tricks until the proper time. There's too much at stake. You stay close to Silver and me. We'll keep you in good spirits." And at that moment, Silver came up to them. "Hazel," he said, "I've just realized where we are, and we're too close to Ephrafa. I think we ought to get out of here as soon as we can." "I want to go right around Ephrafa, but wide," said Hazel. "Do you think you can find the way to that iron road that Holly told us about?" "I think so," replied Silver, "but we can't make too big of a circle, or they'll become completely exhausted. I can't say I know the way, but I can tell the direction." "Well, we'll just have to take that risk," said Hazel. "If only we can get there by morning. They can rest on the other end." They met with no more adventures that night, and they moved quietly along the edges of the fields under the dim lights of a quarter moon. The half-darkness was full of sound and movement. Once, Acorn startled a bird, which flew around them, calling shrilly, until at last they crossed a bank and left it behind. Soon after, somewhere near them, they heard the unceasing bubbling of a nightjar bird, a peaceful sound, without menace, which died gradually away as they pushed on. And once they heard a corncrake calling as it crept among the long grass of a path. It makes a sound like a human fingernail being drawn along the teeth of a comb. But Ailil they met none, and although they were continually on the watch for signs of an Ephraffan patrol, they saw nothing but mice and a few hedgehogs hunting for slugs along the ditches.